Hello everyone. Today we'll finally start with our hands-on tutorial series. So what we are gonna do, we're gonna open the sample that we all have. Once you have the sample, we are gonna create a new AI character as well as a new player character. So off screen, what I did was I duplicated this third person character that you already have, and then I assigned a new skeletal mesh as well as an animation blueprint. I'm gonna show you the animation blueprint. It's as simple as it can get. If you take a look here, I'm not doing anything fancy. This is default Unreal Engine 4 stuff, same as with the directions. These are more for gamepad. You don't have to worry about this, as long as you're setting direction to this one. For targeting, to know if I'm targeting something or not, you will have this animation blueprint if you're verified on Discord, so make sure you're verified. It's just simple stuff. There's nothing big in here, so you don't have to worry about it. So that's it for the event graph, of course including these two. And here I'm gonna explain to you what these things does. The ragdoll snap was part of the ragdoll hit reaction that I showed in the overview. So that takes care of this. This one is for the full body animations. This one is for the upper body. So you need to do this if you wanna do an upper body with the a full body stuff. For movement, simple stuff, jump, loop, end, your default movement. You will have this enum. If this enum is hooked, this is what happens if it's in common. You don't have to do much in here. That's your regular common. And by the way, I'm using the protector pack, so that's one of the things that you might need if you want to follow along with this one. So this is protector pack, normal stuff, without any weapon equipped. That's for common. Now if you're in default pose, which means you're in combat, if you're targeting or not targeting, we're running these. Simple 2D blended spaces. And that's it if you're not targeting. So I'm not using any direction if I'm not targeting. And that's for blocking if you have block on. I'm not gonna cover block yet. If there's lots of requests on covering it, then I might consider it. Just make sure you state your opinion on Discord. I'm relatively new to making tutorials like this, so if there's a lot of demand for one thing, even though I gave you the files and I will give you the files, then make sure you talk to me on Discord. So if we set up the animation blueprint this way, we're gonna have also to set up the AI like I said. But for now we're gonna stick to the player, we'll come to the AI later. Now since I duplicate this, and remember when I said you can override anything you have? So right now, I have an event any damage, since I'm duplicating what I had here. Event any damage, after this is processed and it's done, it's gonna check if my health is under 0. If it is, just restart the level. I'm just gonna remove this for now, because I don't need this. And on begin play, I'm already putting myself in combat. For the Aurora that you guys had here, she had no equip animations and no combat and non-combat animations like Protector. So I was instantly forcing her in combat, so we can just remove all this because we won't need any of it. Now, since I removed this, I might also have to consider that there is a weapon that I have to be equipped in. Because if you don't have any weapon, let me just put the character here. And make sure I possess it. Now, if you don't have any weapon, you won't be able to do anything. So right now, out of the box, he'll have the unarmed weapon. So we're gonna change this into a sword and shield. Just duplicate this. And we're gonna show you everything in sword and shield. And just like I said on the animation blueprint, I'm gonna give you the files. You don't have to worry about it. Just let me explain how things work for now. And you guys can follow along later. Or you can just use the sword and shield that I'll give you with the if you're verified. So make sure it has also the exact same name, so you don't have to worry. But I'm gonna explain what things you need to look for when you're making a new character or making a new weapon. So all the weapons you will have, they will have an equip weapon function. If you have that, as well as you might have a component begin overlap. What this does is for the sphere, you can basically drag and drop. You might not want to, you might just want to equip it however you like. You can drag and drop it. So the sphere itself is not part of the main player weapon, so that's just something that was added later, uh, just in case you want to deal with it as a form of pickup. So I'm deleting I'm setting the owner is extremely important, by the way. On the player side, I had this function that calls which weapon to spawn. The owner must be the player. It No matter what you have to do, you have to set the owner. If the owner is set, which is on spawn, you could set it, or on overlap you could set it, however you like. So after setting that, we can proceed with equipping. Equip weapon works on big gameplay for the weapons, so that's something else to worry about. If you don't have any, if you just spawn it like we were doing here, you don't have to worry about it. If you're gonna put it on the level, you're gonna have to equip it manually. So right here, all what I'm gonna do is I'm checking if the owner is valid, which is again why I tell you to set the owner. If the owner is valid and there is a weapon, or if there is no weapon. Now if there is a weapon, just unequip the previous weapon. So if you have a twin blade and then you wanna equip the sword and shield, this is what happens. We am unequipping the previous weapon and then proceeding with the equip. Now here, I'm just moving the mesh, doesn't matter. You can set an animation instance if you want to. In my case, I don't want to. The assign moveset is what is responsible for this part right here. You see this enum right here? I'm just setting it or changing it based on what we have. So the current moveset will change if you're setting this function. Let me just remove this. And after setting the moveset, it's time to create the traces. I showed you in the overview that the traces are things assigned to weapons or to static meshes or skeletal meshes, however you like. It can be the mesh or the skeletal mesh of the player itself. It can be a different one that you add later, however you like. So for now, I'm creating a base trace object, simply getting it from the collision manager component and assigning a gameplay tag to it. After that, I'm creating a new static mesh component assigned to the actor that we have. So saving it to a variable, assigning no collision. By the way, no collision is extremely important, because if you have a collision on the weapon and you hit something, it might just catapult somewhere or disappear under the map, or just to fly in the air, whatever you want. So just make sure it's no collision. After that, I'm attaching it to the mesh of the player. The mesh of the player with this socket. So the created mesh component that I'm creating here is gonna be assigned to this socket location on the character mesh. I'm gonna show you this socket locations in a bit. Now I'm assigning also the sword mesh, which is something you're gonna have to select it manually if you want. Sword mesh, or you can just do this however you like. I just made it in a variable, like it's easier. Now here I'm gonna look for a sword, and that's the sword. Let me just open it to show you. These are the sockets on the sword itself. So the trace will begin from here all the way to the socket 7. So like I said, the created mesh component, assigning it this mesh, and then the component itself will have these socket locations, and then I'm registering the weapon to be in this equipping socket and the unequipping socket. So that's it for the right hand, which you're gonna need the left hand as well, which is the shield. Now the shield won't have a trace, you don't have to worry about that. I'm just adding another mesh component, no collision as usual, assigning a socket name, assigning the mesh, and then registering the weapon with its socket and with its equipping and unequipping socket. After that, I'm gonna call the set attributes and state function. In the preview, I just came across this pretty quickly. Right now I'm gonna go more in deep on the function, so make sure you focus here. This is extremely important. Set attributes and states, what it does is, when you have a weapon equipped, it will take all the states from that weapon. Now, how do you set that up? Is on the set attributes, it's gonna start clearing everything. So the states will be removed, the abilities will be removed, and then I'm gonna reiterate everything from the data asset, the associated one. Now I'm gonna show you in a bit what's the data asset about, which I showed you before, but I'm gonna talk about it more. Now it will take all the states from the data asset, create them all, as well as start the idle right away. After that, I'm gonna clear the attributes. If by some chance you do not wanna change the attributes, values, or the amount of attributes you have, you can totally skip this. Any of the things you have here, you can totally change them however you like. Everything is overridable. And after that, I'm assigning them. So after clear, you can reassign. Do not assign without clearing, because that might create a conflict if you have two attributes of the same name or the same type. So for data asset, I'm gonna show you what we had for the default Aurora character. She had the unarmed weapon, and unarmed weapon had a player unarmed PDA. Now the player unarmed PDA, just like all the PDAs I showed you, or the data assets that I showed you, it had attributes, the states to have, the abilities to run, and the player inputs that it can run. So we're gonna duplicate this, and then we're gonna call it player sword and shield. We're gonna continue setting this up in the next video, so see you in the next one.